I'm an eager beaver. It's a new a new person.
You got to be first in the class.
That's right. I want a gold star.
Yeah, there you go.
I know you'll be giving those out.
Yeah. No, I hear you talk too much, so I'm gonna have to be careful.
Silent Sam, I am.
Oh, well, we have a small group tonight, which is too bad. So you can talk as much as you want.
I'm just here to listen and learn.
I think you know everything.
I do not. Boy, that was a lot to get through, and I got through it. But did I retain it? Oh no.
I've forgotten this was spring break, and I'm, many of our members have taken their kids and taken advantage of the week and gone away. So we have 4 people.
That's good. I can ease in slowly.
Yep. They were all disappointed about not being able to meet the new people. So
We'll be back, presumably.
yep.
Good to see you, Donna. This is Chris.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good, good.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
I see
Who
we have.
knew we'd be?
No, I went to Hawaii last month. I guess it's almost been a month. But
I know.
remember
I
as
was
a kid, I had seen pictures of the banyan trees in National Geographic, and I always wanted to see one. And we ended up seeing the biggest one in America in Maui. It took up an entire city block. It's their Court Square.
Oh my
It's like
gosh.
the capital of Hawaii or something. I forget when it was planted, but
Yeah.
it looks like 8 trees, but it's one tree that has, they spread and they retrunk. But yeah, it took up, it'd be like if Market Street Park was one
Cool.
banyan tree,
One big street.
the whole thing was taken up. It was really, really beautiful.
That's great. Well, you were a crazy man to respond to my email from Hawaii, so thank you for.
I checked in like twice just to make sure nothing was on fire in the park trail world. Usually in my world, there isn't anything like that, but I always check in just in case.
Well,
And to make people jealous, I have to let them know where
I just
it was.
felt guilty. That's all. I thought, if I'd known, I would never have emailed you.
Well, welcome. We'll give this a couple minutes before we kick off, but it's good to see you here, Donna. I'm sure you'll be
It's good
fine
to
on the
see you.
commission. You'll do wonderful.
Even though I can only see your name, but I can.
It's Vicky.
And my camera doesn't work.
Oh, Chris.
I know what you look like.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a small, we may have more city staff here than we have members.
Dear.
Uh,
Are we gonna have a quorum?
Well, if everyone who's supposed to show up shows up, that would be sad. We have to
I
have.
don't know if you have any action items, so if you don't have a quorum and it's all information.
Oh, really?
Okay.
It's only really when you vote, I think, that you have to have quorum, so.
Okay.
There's Holly.
There's Holly.
Holly, you look like you're all dressed up to meet everybody.
No.
Got my
Oh, there you go.
hate you, so it's an exciting day for me.
Cool.
What happened today?
Yesterday they won the basketball national championship.
Oh.
Woohoo.
Yeah, very exciting.
Oh, I went to University of North Carolina. I was not very happy.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry.
Some of my grandchildren, parents went to Duke, so we had a big to do the other night.
Yeah, that was another intense game.
Glad the Who's got to be champions for 2 years in a row. That was pretty nice after losing so badly. We count the COVID year as a repeat.
Well, KU was going to be the number
that's
one,
right. I was
number
gonna
one
say,
that
isn't it,
year.
Chris?
So
Yeah.
So Peggy, it's 5:01. I don't know if you know for sure who is and who is not coming, but I will let you call the meeting to order whenever you feel you want to do.
Okay, let me just wait a couple minutes.
To referee tonight, so.
Yeah. I know 4 people are not coming, again, being spring break, didn't sort of realize that they've taken advantage, take their family away. So we won't have tonight the two Jeffs, Jeff Ayton, who's our vice chair, and Jeff Pacelli, and we won't have Mark Zollenhofer and Tim Padalino. So they are all taking advantage of spring break. We should have 8 people though. So I'll just, and Lakeisha is the other new, Lakeisha Talbert is the other new member, and her class gets out about 5. So she's going to be here, and she's, I think, going to come in by phone, and then as soon as she gets back to her house, will join us, but she'll
I think
be
I
here.
see 6 commissioners right now, I think.
So we have, yeah, I don't want to hold up. We may, I don't know if Mark and Jean, you want to come in? I see your name and not your face. There's Mark. And
Hi.
Mark is always in Europe.
I'm actually at my dining room table where I grabbed my laptop and just spilled a glass of water on the Sunday Times.
Oh, well, it's too late to read it anyway, Mark. So, we might just well, let's go on because it's 5:03 now. I was going to start with introductions, but let's do the March minutes first, just so maybe I hesitate to do introductions since we don't have many of our members here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here comes. So actually, oh, there's, okay, we're only missing one. It's going to be a small group tonight, Jody. We have a lot of people missing because of spring break. But we'll go on and call the meeting to order, and let's go on and approve the March minutes, and maybe we'll have everybody here to introduce themselves by the time we do that. Mark has been so kind to, since we don't have an urban forester, to have done the minutes for the last couple of meetings. He's going to also do tonight's minutes, and then we'll have our urban forester at our May meeting. So does anyone have any corrections to the March minutes? Nope. Good. I think we can go on and approve them, Chris. We do have 7.
I think you do it by acclamation anyway. I don't know if you really, is that the right term?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
thank you. All right.
So it's
All right.
not really a vote.
Explanation. Explanation. Everybody raise their hand who approves of the minutes.
Acclamation.
Acclamation. Sorry.
Acclamation.
We acclaim.
Oh, okay.
They're great.
Good. Good. All
You
right.
are doing minutes again tonight, I assume.
Mark is
Yes.
going to do them.
Yeah, I'm going to
Wonderful.
take.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So we let's go. I guess we'll go on and introduce ourselves. Maybe we'll just start with Donna at the top of the screen. Many of you know Donna.
I'm Donna Shaughnessy. I live near downtown, and I'm excited to be working with you all and hoping to get more trees.
Now, Donna, you're supposed to tell him a little. Donna
More
does
than
so
that?
much. She does.
Okay.
She doesn't want to tell you all the things she does. Why don't you just tell him a little bit more?
Okay, so I'm chair of the local Sierra Club. I volunteer with Bribana Conservation Alliance. I volunteer with Third Act, which is working on climate change. I volunteer with the Nature Conservancy, and that's how I know Holly. I do a newsletter for sort of activists, and so I do that. Anything else I'm supposed to say?
Donna used to work for the city, and then she
Oh,
was.
right.
Yeah.
I did used to work for the city. I have a master's in planning, and I actually worked in the planning department at one point. So
Yeah.
how handy, but I have forgotten all the stuff I knew about how the city works or didn't work at the time.
Well, all the city staff here will tell you how well things are working tonight. Okay. Holly, you want to introduce yourself? You don't be shy like Donna.
Okay, I'm glad Donna was the guinea pig. Yeah, so my name's Holly Lafferty. I live in the Belmont neighborhood on Monticello Avenue. Yeah, so I moved here 3 years ago to take a job with the Nature Conservancy, and I still work at the Nature Conservancy as a stream restoration ecologist. And I also volunteer with the Rivanna Conservation Alliance and the James River Association. Originally, I'm from Kansas City and attended KU, so I had an exciting night last night. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I attended University of North Carolina. In fact, if none of you heard that beforehand, it was not an exciting night for me last night. So now I think we have Makesha, but you might still be walking home, Makesha. Do you want to introduce yourself now or wait till you actually get home?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm happy to introduce myself now, and then I can show my face once I'm safely home.
Okay.
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Makesha Tolbert, and I am new to Charlottesville. I actually moved here in August, and I am an MFA candidate at UVA in poetry. And so a lot of my current movement in time is really focused on that work, but my background is actually in community food systems and community food sovereignty projects. And so that informs a lot of the creative work that I do and a lot of my curiosity about the commission. So it's great to be here. And I am from Virginia, originally actually from Arlington. So refamiliarizing myself with a different ecology, but happy to be back in Virginia after a decade.
Well, we're very happy to have you. And we can see your face, but we'll see your real face in a minute. So thank you. I'm excited about all three members. They bring a lot of different experiences. And I love the poem that Makesha sent us about the Dutch elm disease. I hope you all took a chance to read it. I love the last line. The trees were like ghosts, these lost trees. So thank you for that. All right. We're on schedule here. So Chris is here. Rian is also taking advantage of spring break, and he is gone on much deserved vacation. Chris, if you could just, particularly for the new people, tell us a little bit about the urban forester and when he's coming, and then we can look at the canopy study.
We did make an offer to our new urban forester who accepted. I believe he starts on the 19th of April. Used to work in Buena Vista. You got to pronounce it the right way because they get mad at you down there if you say it wrong. And he was also with Department of Conservation and Recreation for the state. I looked a little bit at the resume. I wasn't involved in the hiring process, but seems to be very well qualified. Looks about maybe the same age that Mike was, so we could hope he might stay around for a long career here. And look forward to introducing him to you all at the next meeting because he will be on staff by the May meeting. And maybe by the May meeting we'll be in person. So that would be an appropriate time to meet the new commissioners as well as the new urban forester.
And his name is Steve Graves. Is that, I've forgotten.
That sounds about right. Steve, yes, I think.
Oh, Holly knows him.
I think it's Gaines.
Gaines.
Just Steve Gaines.
You're right, Holly.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I look forward to meeting him again. Looks very qualified and should be here soon.
Good. Yeah, Holly has actually worked with him on a couple of restoration projects.
Yeah, and to have somebody that worked at the state level will be a neat layer. He also worked at Davies, which Mike had worked at Davies for quite a while too. So he's done both private contract work and state government work and local government work. So I think that's going to be well-rounded.
Yeah. Good. All right. The canopy study. I'm sure you all looked at all the links from the canopy study. The two documents, I think, had lots of pictures, so they weren't too bad to get through. And I sort of gave up looking at all the links. But Chris, you want to give us a summary and some of the changes they made from our last, when we last looked at it?
I, to be honest, have not been able to dig in a lot of detail still just yet. So the reports are in. They're basically done with their work at this point for the contract work. So taking the big bulk of the reports, all the data and all of that, and knowing that we have a new forester coming on board, and if we are looking to update the urban forest management plan and other city zoning and stuff that's on the horizon, this will be a very good data point and could do some trend analysis that might help guide some of the conversations around those larger plans and our annual work plan and that kind of stuff. The appendix that they sent did go through comments that were made and their responses in blue about how they updated the report. I'm not sure if that's the entirety of commission and staff question. Yeah, there are commissioner comments and some staff questions that they worked on there. There may be a few remaining. I think Mr. Frisbee's comments, they got about half of them in, and they may owe us a few more responses, but call this the 99.9% complete package report. What we then do with it from here is going to be our homework for the next couple of months, as how to digest it and how to use it to guide our, again, actions, updates, policies, tree planting programs, and those sorts of things. And we will post them, I think, after tonight, if they're not already posted. We wanted the commission to effectively say, okay, now the commission's received them, and starting tomorrow morning, they can be put out for general public consumption for everybody else to see them. So I don't know, Peggy, I don't think you guys need to adopt it or vote on it unless you choose to, but I guess open up for any comments, discussion. Are there any questions that still remain unanswered to the consultant, which would be different than how you want to proceed with this data in hand and what you want to use it for?
I'd like to make sure that this report is presented to the consultants doing the comprehensive plan update, to the, gosh, I'm forgetting all my terms, the
Zoning.
zoning stuff.
Charlottesville plans tomorrow
Charlottesville plans together.
together.
Yeah, so I'd like to be sure that they get this and they realize that this is something important. It's not just sort of an attachment to an email saying, by the way, here's this. This is a good, important information that is topical and needs to be considered in their work.
We can talk with the other departments as well. I think neighborhood development's heading up the comp plan, but how to put this on their plate and make sure they digest it. We'll look into that.
Great, thank you, Chris.
That's a good suggestion, Jamie.
I don't want to jump in, but I'm just going to and say, just if it comes to me, then I'll make sure it looks at. That's the pathway. If it gets to me, I'll make sure it gets looked at.
Oh, thanks, James.
Yeah.
Great. And I think I see Vicky, I think making notes because her codes committee
Yep.
might make sure that's done.
And
Does anybody else have any comments?
yeah,
Mark?
I do. I think just since James spoke up and we wanted to forward it to him, I mean, it's a lot of information, and I was on vacation last week and didn't take time to kind of go through to see how comments had been picked up. But I think I could take on or help with just seeing whether the executive summary is effectively what we would want someone to see, because and I agree with Jody that it would be great to actually find a way to present it to the Charlottesville Plans Together group so that we can highlight the salient points and it's not kind of overwhelming, because there's a lot of information in there. I look forward to kind of catching up to see particularly the comments that were made about the towards the end about how the decision was made to make certain priorities. I think a number of us sort of had found that the weighting system for how to prioritize where to plant wasn't entirely transparent. And hopefully it will make more sense this time around.
And also the commission can make its own weighting system as it moves forward. This, this is one person's or one consultant's view. So if you wanted to, that's the other piece, because there's so much data. If you wanted to change an algorithm or something, there's a chance, as long as staff can do it, that we could rerun certain things within reason, because we have the raw spreadsheets, we have GIS data. Those sorts of things can also get loaded into the correct groups and onto the public server, so more groups can play with the raw data, as well as stuff like executive summaries and those kinds of things.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Mark, I think that's a good idea. And since you're chairman of the Educate Advocate Committee, I think it's a good task to take on. And, maybe someone from Vicky's group, like Paul, might be willing to kind of look at it with you. Or someone
Happy to do that. I mean, it's almost with an eye towards, if there were a single paragraph introducing it, with a link to the study itself, the way we write that paragraph is sort of the primary way the public understands how we see it. So.
Yeah. And to respond to your comment a little bit about priorities, I understood, I think we had some questions about which neighborhoods were priority for planting. And one thing they did, there were certain criteria, how much canopy they had, but a lot of it came down to how much available land they had for planting. For instance, we've sort of prioritized some of the low canopy neighborhoods like 10th and Page, Star Hill, Rose Hill. But they didn't come up necessarily in the highest priority area to plant because they had lower planting areas available for planting. So I think you have to take that into consideration, why they came up with certain neighborhoods over others. But you can look at that again. I think they explained that a little better this time. Does anybody else have any comments? I was glad that they, a couple of things they said that, one of that sort of in our priorities too, they suggested when you plant trees, plant large shade trees that are going to live a long time, and then have, low maintenance trees, particularly plant them over impervious areas. And they also talked about, which James, you'll be hearing about soon from the Codes Committee, making our zoning ordinance stronger to protect trees and require more trees during development. I thought that was certainly one of our priorities. So they talked a lot about careful planning when you're doing new development to try to save trees when it's possible. And Chris, one thing I was going to ask you is, well, one thing that was a little disappointing, I'm not disappointed in the consultants because we really didn't have it in our RFP, but GeoPlanet, I think I'm probably not pronouncing the name of the consultants correctly, but they've developed now a tool that assesses the health benefits and detriments of not having canopy in neighborhoods. And they had a seminar just a couple of weeks ago about it. They have a new tool, but they didn't have it when we did our study. And that's something that we've been really conscious about, the link between low canopy neighborhoods and poor health outcomes because of heat and pollution. So next time we do this canopy study, I think it'd be really important to include that because that's missing in this. But other than that, I think it's comprehensive, and it's not a really long document, which is good, and it does have lots of images in it. So thank you, Mark, for suggesting to summarize it for us. So that's great. All right, there's
two quick parks project updates, kind of based on the tree canopy study coming out. We are doing some stream restorations. One is at McIntyre Park. The other is over by the disc golf course by Bodo's and Morton Drive at Meadow Creek Gardens. The city determined that the canopy loss for the one by the disc golf course was not a tolerable amount of canopy loss, particularly given this report, and we've decided not to do that stream restoration. The stream's not that bad off. So that was one project we just kind of said, let's not even bother with it this year. And if you're keeping up with the Tonsler Park planning thing, we're looking to do a parking expansion, and rather than go in and cut down some trees and get into some green space, we found a way to reconfigure the existing lot to also preserve trees in a low-income heat island type of neighborhood. So at least on our end, this is already, we probably would have not done the Tonsler trees anyway, but the Meadow Creek Garden stream restoration, we like stream restorations, but we decided the canopy loss was not good on balance on that one. So you guys got a lot of press coverage out of this one, which is probably the first time I've seen that much press coverage of it. So I think the public is aware of it. I've heard trees a lot more in the last 2 months than we used to. So I think the message got out quite a bit already. Then there's probably more to be done there.
Yeah, it's been really good. I'm going to be on, I think, 3 panels in April.
Oh, wow.
The UVA, Sierra Club, and now, and one other, I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. We've gotten, and there's another article today in Charlottesville tomorrow. And if you haven't had a chance, go to the video and see people talking about trees. It's fun. Chris, I would like for the Tree Commission to have a presentation about the restoration in McIntyre Park. So you and I could maybe talk about that. You know, have a presentation in one of the next meetings coming up.
Okay.
But thank you. I did watch the presentation about Tonsler, and I was so glad that you didn't go in and cut down those London plane trees just for cars. So thank you. All right, we have a number of staff here. I don't want to keep everybody waiting. So Public Utilities, we have Irene Peterson and Lauren Hildebrand, who is the Director of Public Utilities. And Irene's going to talk to us about their successful energy saving trees program. Is that right? Yes.
Yes. And I have a very short presentation that I think like 4 slides. So I'd like to share that if it's okay with you guys.
Yes.
All right. Oh, I think you have to make I'm disabled to screen sharing right now.
Yeah, let's see. So who's ever.
Remy, maybe?
I just gave you that. Should see it now.
Yeah, you're a co-host now.
All
Yes.
right. Are you guys able to see that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, I see it.
All right. So thank you so much for having me and Lauren tonight. We are very excited about sharing this program with the Tree Commission. So Lauren might jump in also if I'm forgetting to share any important facts. So, but first I'd like to just go over what we are. We are the Department of Utilities. We provide water and wastewater for the city and also natural gas service to the city and the urban part of the county. And also we oversee the stormwater CIP. And one of the goals of our department is to promote energy conservation in our community. And so when we came across so we always looking for, different ways to promote that in our community. And I came across the Energy Saving Tree program from the Arbor Day Foundation. And I thought that would be like a great addition to our energy efficiency programs that we have. So, can you see the next slide? Okay. So
So Renee, you need to proceed with the slideshow and the next slide. It didn't come up.
It's showing the first one?
Yeah. So hit slideshow and then you can scroll through them.
Okay. Can you see down this one that has what's the energy saving tree?
Oh, we just see the first one, Irene.
Let me just go here. Can you see this one?
We see the first one.
Irene, you just need to click slideshow at the top. We shouldn't be seeing all your other slides.
Okay, can you see the slide number 2 now?
No.
Until you click,
Yeah,
there we go.
Can you see?
Yes.
All right, sorry. It's a whole new word with the Zoom. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the Energy Saving Tree program. So this is not a new program. Arbor Day Foundation has this program for the last 10 years, and they work together with different utility companies. And the concept is that we help residents to promote the idea that they can find a good place to planting a tree, and with that they can get some energy benefits from the shade of the tree during the summer or blocking the harsh winds during the winter. And the tree groups try to work together to promote that. One, of course, is the Arbor Day Foundation that provides this turnkey program. And the cool part of this program is the iTree software that manages the whole process of reserving the tree. So the participants go online, and there is like a list of trees that they can select on. They find their home, and they can move around the tree, and you can see the size of the tree, how tall they're going to be, and the space they're going to occupy on their lot. And when they move around, they can see the type of energy benefits they would have depending on the location of the tree. So when they select that, they can pick a day to pick up the tree, and the process is over on the website. And the other component of this program is the local partners that, in this case, is us. We are responsible for paying the cost of the tree and also promoting locally this program, as well as handling the logistic of distributing the trees when the time comes. And honestly, I think the most important piece of this puzzle is our residents, because they're the ones responsible for picking up the tree, and then making sure that they planting the tree and they care for the tree for the rest of their life. And we do the Arbor Day Foundation, they provide some additional information how to care with the trees before they collect the tree, and we also have some additional information when they come to pick it up. But definitely is up to the homeowners to be taking care of this tree later. Okay, let's see if can you see the number 3 slide? No.
You're still on number 2. The slides don't seem to be transitioning.
Yeah. Can you see 3 now?
No. Can you click on slideshow at the top? Is that not working?
It may also be a delay. Last time we did this, someone was doing it from home, and there was a lag between what they did and what we see. So
Yeah, she's
could
in
be
the
that.
office.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
That's better.
Which one is?
There you go.
That's perfect, but go to the right slide.
Is not the right
You're
one?
on 3 right now.
All right. 3?
Yep.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Sorry about that. So let me share a little bit of how the program worked locally. Our original idea was to giving out 200 trees, and they were going to be first come, first service. We only select to give the trees to our customers that were located in the city limits. And the way that we promoted the program was we sent some press release out, and the media did a great job of covering. We got really good feedback from all the local news stations. We also use our utility newsletter, and I hope that everybody that's here tonight receive a postcard on their mailbox. We send this out to almost 13,000 households, and the postcards was, of course, promoting this program, and it's going to be opening on March 14. But we also hope that we create help with the awareness of the benefits of having trees in the community. Let's try again. Can you see the next slide?
Yes, we're on 4.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and that I would like also again to thank the Tree Commission because I think they did an awesome job of selecting 5 trees for the program. And it was like a really nice combination between, small, medium, and large trees. And so I got like a lot of good feedback of people that they appreciate the trees that we offer. And we're going to be giving out in 3-gallon pots, and they're going to vary between 2 and 4 feet tall. And do you see the 4th slide?
We're on 5 now.
Mhm.
Going 5. Yes.
That's the right
The
one.
results.
Yes.
All right. So as I thought that went really well, the program. We opened up for reservations on March 14, and by 11:30, most 100 trees were gone. They were reserved. So people were like on their computer ready to reserve the trees like early in the morning. So we realized that we're going to be running out trees like in the first day. So we decided to add 50 trees to the program. And so we end up giving out 250 trees. And nearly all these trees were reserved in the 48-hour period. I shared this with the Arbor Day Foundation, and they were like really surprised how well went this program here. So you can tell that our community is like eager for this kind of program. So they understand how important is having trees in their property. Now we are shifting gears a little bit. We are getting ready for the tree pickup event, and it's going to be in the end of the month. And hopefully we get, all the 250 trees picked up. Normally they have between 10 and 20% no shows. So we are hoping that we get close to 10 instead of 20. And during that event, we're gonna also provide some additional information that Arbor Day Foundation provide to us on how to care, to plant and care for the trees. And I got this information from the report that I thought it might be interesting for you guys, how the trees were reserved by neighborhood. So you can see that a lot of them went to Belmont and Fry Springs and Barracks and Rugby. Lauren, do you have anything that I have forgot?
No, I think you covered it all. Good job.
And I apologize for the slide scenes. So this is pretty much what I got for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Do you want to cut down the, want to turn off the slideshow, Irene?
Sure.
See, I think you just,
I have to stop sharing.
yeah. So while she's doing that, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
A couple.
Vicky?
Is that iTree software generally available?
You can download it.
Okay.
It's an
Does it
app.
cost money? It's an app? Okay. And it was a little disappointing to look at the list and see that so few trees were requested for 10th and Page and Star Hill. Was any particular outreach done to those neighborhoods? Or?
No, we decided because it was our first time, we just
Right.
decided to offer to everybody and see how it goes. And, like I said, maybe some things we can improve next year if we decide to do again. But I think the idea is just try to do as broad as possible and see, get some feedback of how we can improve.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
So does tree care shift even beyond home ownership? If someone leaves and someone else buys that same property, like, are they kind of just sort of buying into the maintenance around these trees?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think, we're gonna keep records of where the trees are located. That comes with part of the software that we manage. But I don't think there's any plans to, how we can create awareness for them to keep taking care of the trees. We hope that they understand the meaning when they buy the house, but unfortunately, I don't I can, but you know, I think something that I can ask Arbor Day Foundation to see if they have a plan for that.
Yeah, I would be curious to see just what an ongoing conversation around the ongoing responsibility of these trees looks like. I can imagine the hesitance to not want to take on care, and just like, as someone who anticipates all kinds of tree problems, I'm just thinking about that. But yeah, I appreciate that. My other question was about pickup and what might happen once you see what trees aren't being picked up. Like, is how much capacity is there to follow up? Can those trees get delivered?
So, so normally, because we want them to buy in on the program, so we thought about, oh, maybe we should offer to deliver, but I talked with the Arbor Day Foundation, is more like they really have to buy in and take the time to show up and get the tree and take care of the tree, because if we, you know, facilitate too much, they might not be responsible for the tree once get to their home. So I think so if there's no show, we just going to be, our plan is to donate to the parks, and they can find a nice place for them inside of city limits.
Thank you. Let's see, Mark, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I do. This is sort of a comment for the Tree Commission group. Thank you, Irene, for the presentation. It's really informative, and it's exciting to have more trees planted. It's another channel for tree planting in the city. I got a similar sized tree from my neighborhood association, and it's now about 15 feet tall, but it started out very small. I wanted to just sort of think about how what effect this public program, because there's been such great outreach, and what the expectations are of it compared to the other initiatives the Tree Commission has been involved with, because we have typically planted in the tree planting with the tree stewards much larger trees, and when the city plants a tree, it starts out much larger, and the city has certain responsibilities. So Makesha just asked about sort of what those responsibilities are, and I'm reminded that it would be helpful for the Education Committee, which I'm chair, to sort of spell out when a city plants a tree what the city's responsibilities are and what's expected of the homeowners, because that question comes up in my neighborhood a lot. City sort of plants the tree with a water bag and then sends trucks around to fill it up. So I don't know, keeping track of these things might not be our central Tree Commission responsibility, but awareness of it is important, because, you know, the idea that you're getting an 8-foot tall tree versus a 2-foot tall tree is fairly different, and the cost is quite different. You know, it wouldn't surprise me to have members of the public say, well, why don't we plant thousands of 2-foot tall trees on city streets? And there are reasons we don't do that. They don't, you know, they need to be somewhat established to begin with, for one thing, and not run over. But I think it's a great program, and I think particularly the idea about the energy benefit, which is at the core of it. It's complicated, but there probably within the program are rules of thumb about, you know, if you're trying to shade your house, you want your tree to be a certain distance so that it can actually be shaded when the tree grows up. That's come up in my work in the past, that we talk about trees saving energy, but if you don't plant them close enough to the building isn't shaded and no energy is saved. So all of that's quite important, that it be planted in the right place. And that has its own set of issues of planting it so close that it presents other challenges. Like
Thank
growing
you.
into the house.
Yeah.
Peggy, I've got one more comment.
All right, Lauren.
Actually, we overlooked during the presentation. Sorry, Irene, you prompted me earlier and I didn't think about it till Mark was speaking. But the other benefit that we're promoting is that we're always conscious of from a utilities department standpoint is to make sure people from a homeowner standpoint, call V811 before they dig, so they don't injure our
Right.
utility lines. So that's also part of the promotion as well.
Right.
It's kind of this complete energy saving is the first priority, but then we want people to call V811. So that was also an emphasis of this program.
And our GIS person here was able to put on the program a layer. So if the person tried to put a gas line on top of an underground utility that we manage, they show that as obstructed. So they were not able to, at least if they use the software, they're not able to plant that, but they still need to call 811.
Yeah.
But was one more thing that we add so people remind them that they, that location might be in conflict with utility underground.
And this is Chris. So these trees can go on private property. They're meant to go on private property. How do
Yes,
you
they're. Mhm.
how do you mark the laterals? Because I thought when Miss Utility came, they don't do private stuff like your house lateral. Is that not the case, or do you guys know where those are?
Lauren?
So, Chris, what we do is we're not required by law to mark lateral lines. Plus, we kind of know we will mark them as they leave our main with an arrow out to the property, but you never know whether they're laid straight in or not. So we can't really, we don't know where they are, right?
Right.
Sewer lateral or household water line. But then the gas line is all the way at the house. So we do mark that.
True. The one that blows up. You want to know where that one is, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lauren, for bringing that up. I was going to say that. I thought that was a good part of your program. But so
Yeah.
many people don't know you should call Miss Utility before planting
That's
any
right.
tree. So this is an exciting program. And, of course, we try to promote planting both on public and private. And the Charlottesville Area Tree Stewards does the same thing. And I was talking with them, and we thought before next year, maybe we could all get our heads together and see if we can coordinate and do some, things together to help get people to plant trees. I think that would be a nice thing because we have a lot of things going on for the Arbor Day too. So we appreciate that and look forward to working with you.
Peggy, there's another question that came in through the chat. Do you want me to just read it aloud?
Sure. Well, we generally take questions at the end.
Was it?
Okay, this is from one of your members.
Oh, it was me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got impatient, but so I was like, let me just slip it in there for later.
Okay, did you have a question? And then we need to move on.
I imagine I know it. My question was about these tree plantings not counting towards the city's tree planting goals. And I just wanted to clarify that those are independent of each other.
Yes, they're independent. Yeah.
We go for our overall canopy goal, but the city still is trying to plant like 200 trees a year. We wouldn't count it under that, but it certainly promotes our canopy going up every year. So it's, a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we have more questions about the energy saving, would it make sense to write to you directly, Irene? Or...
Yes, feel free. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we have Utilities Outreach at charlottesville.gov.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Irene and Lauren. Thank you for coming and presenting to us. It's great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
And real quick, Lauren asked me this earlier before we get into other items. I don't know if Lauren's hanging out for the rest of the meeting, but to make sure the commission knows, and we can do this over the course of this year because it'll come up, that how utilities has been structured within the overall city department program. Lauren, did you just want to mention real quick what utilities is? I think Irene mentioned it, but just very quickly because we'll learn more about it later, I think. And I think you're muted. There you go.
I'm sorry. I think Irene covered it. I appreciate the opportunity though.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Lorraine and Irene. Lauren.
So are we not going to cover some of the questions that were written and presented earlier before this meeting? I mean, easements is a really important thing for me. clearances between utilities and tree planting and that discussion. And is that something that we're not going to cover here now?
Well, Jody, those questions are going to come up with the NDS and Public Works Director, but if you want to ask something quickly to Lauren, just.
Well,
for
no,
utilities.
no. Well, I thought Lauren was representing the utilities and. Okay.
I am representing the utility. So Peggy, I'm here for the remainder as part of the, to assist James in that.
Oh, okay. So
Okay, good.
Jody, let's wait till we,
I'd be glad to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Draw my hand.
Yes,
there.
put your hand down there. Okay. So the next are committee reports. And I'm afraid I left off a couple things. Mark is going to talk about with the Education and Advocacy Committee a couple of things. But let me just say that it's really nice that the new members had preferences for the committees that worked out just perfectly where we needed people. So on the Education and Advocacy Committee, Jean has asked to be on that committee, but Holly wanted to be on that committee. So that works out great. And then on the Arbor Committee, which we needed people, both Donna and Makesha wanted to be on that. So it's just perfect. And we have, for the Codes Committee, Vicki has 3 volunteers that help her because that is going to be, they have a heavy load this year. And we have on Education and Advocacy 1 volunteer too. So these are people mainly who used to be tree commission members, and they help us just on a volunteer basis. So we're going to have very good committees this year. So I appreciate your help on that. So anyway, Mark's going to talk a little bit about 2 issues. Just give us a brief description of his presentation to City Council about the CIP request. And also we had a request from Seville 100 about the Tree Commission possibility of joining as a voting or a non-voting, I think it's called an allied, not using the proper terms, but member. But Mark, if you could report on those 2, then I'll report on Arbor Day.
I spoke at the City Council meeting 2 weeks ago. Last night was the second review of the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, which is now sort of residing with the city manager's office and staff, has been edited through this process and is scheduled for council approval on the 12th. So that, my comments were just as we've discussed in past meetings, having the 100,000 that we had hoped to have set aside for tree planting was reduced to 75,000. It was just an appeal to return it, and return it to 100,000, and that the other line item for the Emerald Ash Borer at 105,000 remained as requested, and simply thank them for keeping that in. The second item that Peggy noted, this Seville 100, there have been some discussions about whether the Tree Commission as an advisor to council, as our sort of our charter, is advising council. Could we join this advocacy organization that is sort of aggregating other groups with interests in advancing climate change strategies? And there's been kind of a conclusion from staff that it's maybe not an appropriate thing for us to be a voting member of an organization when our primary charge is with the city. So I think it certainly not as a meeting member. One of our members is actually active on the committee, and there definitely is an overlap in certain goals. I think that's all I probably know about that item, can say about it. And I guess that's really it. My summary there. Once the foresters on board, our committee will be going over what's posted on the website, kind of as an ongoing thing, to make announcements and to edit content that's related to tree commission activities.
Thank you. And Jean has volunteered to continue to go to the Seville 100 meetings and let them know of our important issues. And then she can come back and report to us too if there are things that we need to know about or want to get involved with all the alliances on that. And also, I think Donna goes to those meetings also as the Sierra Club representative. Am I right, Donna?
Actually, no, we have a different Sierra Club member going.
Oh, okay.
Because I just got overcommitted, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Donna used to go. So thank you, Mark. So for Arbor Day, let me get my notes here. There are a number of things around Arbor Day and Earth Day. There are a number of things going on. The first one will happen, Relief Seville is sponsoring an environmental career fair at CHS on April 21st. That's actually a Thursday from 1 to 2. That's the time the students have free time. And we've invited, the purpose of that is to educate teenagers about the importance of the environment, trees, climate change, what have you, and to let them know about all the jobs that are available, not only for long-time careers, but perhaps even summer jobs or summer internships. So we're going to have a fun fair. We're going to have music. We're going to have popcorn. We're going to have a DJ. We're going to sort of have a scavenger hunt to encourage them to go around to different tables. It'll be outside, we hope. If not, it'll be in the gym. We have 25 vendors and organizations coming. It's really great. We have 2 nursery contractors, 2 arborists, 3 landscape architects, including our own Jeff Aiton's firm and Paul Josie's firm. We have a civil engineer. We have 2 landscape suppliers, including Bel Air Farms. We have nonprofits. The Nature Conservancy will be there. Tree stewards. We'll have a representative. Mark is going to represent us. Relief Seville will have a representative. We have 2 solar energy firms coming that both work in the city. One's in the city and one's in Richmond. And we have 5 local and governmental groups and state groups. The Parks Department will be represented, Department of Wildlife, Department of Forestry, state parks. We have UVA bringing their sawmill because UVA reclaims wood. We've asked them not to turn it on until the end of the hour because apparently it's very loud. And we have Dabney Lancaster Community College coming. They have an urban forestry program. And then we have a new retail outlet called Public Lands that's going to take over Field and Stream. And they do a lot of outreach to the community about environment. So we think it's going to be fun and very informative. I can't sort of invite you all because there are a lot of security protocols that people need to go through. But if you'd like to, we do need some volunteers just to help with, it's actually going to start at 11:30 because people will start to come and put their equipment and get their table ready. So it's going to start at 11:30. We'll have lunch for the vendors and volunteers. But let me know if you'd like to volunteer. And again, I just have to let you know what all the protocols are. So it's going to be fun. And then the tree stewards on, no, the tree commission is we hope, going to plant a tree at Clark School, probably April 26th. Clark, I'm afraid their principal has just turned over. They have a new principal in the last couple of weeks, and Jeff Aiton, when he gets back, is going to have to contact and make sure we've already got the tree picked out. So we are hoping that Relief is going to fund the tree, and we'll have a nursery contractor plant it. We hope that's going to work. On actually Arbor Day at 10 o'clock, the tree commission and tree stewards will be have a ceremony at Sojourners Church. I'll send all this out to you so you'll know, but At 10 o'clock on Arbor Day, our normal thing is to celebrate a tree. This is an American elm that's still in great condition, a huge tree. And the Cats is going to put it on their landmark tree site. And also there are 4 trees on that campus, that church campus, that were planted by Cats and the tree stewards when they did the planting at Belmont. So we can see how those trees are going. So I think that's it. So that's good. And again,
When's Arbor Day?
excuse me,
When's Arbor Day?
Arbor Day is actually on the 29th. Earth
29th.
Day is on the 22nd. So these things are planned around Earth Day and Arbor Day. You will be invited to Sojourners Church, and if we can, plant a tree at Clark. And if we can invite you again, the schools still have security and COVID issues. We'll invite you to that too. So again, I will send out all this information to you, so you'll get that before the end of the month, before all these things happen. So now we have, are there any questions?
Peggy, for some of the media pieces, I don't really know how things work in town in that regard. Because they've been writing and covering the commission and just the shared work so much, is that a choice they make about being there, or is there actually some collaboration around inviting them to be there?
Well, for the Arbor Day event that Cats does, and we'll do at Sojourners Church, the Cats always invites some media there. And if we can plant a tree, Jean has agreed to, at Clark, to contact the school publicity person. And for the relief of the Environmental Career Day at CHS, the school's publicity person has already been contacted, and they're going to cover that. So they, in other words, if they know about it, they'll take care of the media contact for us, because they have a department that does that. A lot of the publicity that's been around trees lately, I think, has come because of our presentations to Planning Commission and City Council. And basically, they reached out to us on that. And we knew that the reporters, of course, would have been there, but a lot of that, it's been snowballing lately without us doing much. It's really interesting. So I think Chris said, he's never seen so much about trees in the paper as we've had lately. So it's been great.
I saw that in the piece you even mentioned about today, they recorded an episode of In My Humble Opinion.
Yes, that's what I was mentioning. The people, I think, want to go listen to that. It's interesting, both the article and Charlotte Woods and Charlotte in the Charlottesville Observer. So I don't know if I'll send that out too. I don't know if I'll send a link to that. Jeff usually does my to-do things here, but I'm writing down a few things. I'll get Mark's notes too and figure out everything I need to do. All right. So I think we appreciate staff staying around for this hour to the highlight for the night. We have 3 staff members here. We appreciate them coming. We have James Frias from NDS. We have Lauren again from Hildebrand from Utilities, and we have Stacy Smalls from Public Works. And believe it or not, I think everybody is fairly new, including Lauren. Is that right? I don't know if Lauren's listening yet, but I know James and Stacy are new. So
Actually, Peggy, I've been with the city for 15 years.
Oh, okay. Maybe I think Rian was telling me that almost every department head is new except for one. Maybe that's you.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. No, I don't think that's true.
Okay. So anyway, we appreciate your time, taking time tonight. We know that coming in new to a city is, and particularly a city that's had turnover, has been a challenge. And we appreciate you taking that challenge and helping us make it a better city. So the Codes Committee has done a good job, I think, of making a list of questions, which Lauren, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you're going to be there. I didn't send them to you ahead of time, but you can jump in. Or maybe you did get them. Maybe you did, but I didn't realize actually you were going to be here tonight. But so I'm going to let Vicky, who's head of our code, sort of be the moderator and on these questions. And I know Jody has a question too, but maybe Vicky, I'm going to let you take over.
Okay, so we sent out a list of questions to you, I guess about a week ago, some for NDS and some for Public Works. And not sure how you want to address this. Have you seen the questions?
Yeah, I've seen the questions, yes.
Okay, and James, you too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you want to approach this? Do you want to just generally respond, or do you want to go through the questions one at a time? And should I read the questions out?
So Vicki, just for clarification, some of the Public Works questions are actually utilities questions.
Yes, that's true.
And then some of the NDS questions are probably Public Works questions, but
Okay.
we'll figure that out. on
Sort
our
all
end.
that out, I guess.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
We can probably sort through them. I'm wondering if it would be useful if maybe each of us just had an opportunity to introduce ourselves as well.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. That's a good idea, James.
Excellent.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
So yeah, my name is James Fries. I'm the new director of NDS. I started back in September. And I can just say by way of background, I'm originally from Northern Virginia, Arlington and Falls Church. Spent some time here at the university and started my career with the city of Hampton, Virginia, a number of years ago. For the last 12 years, I've been up in the Boston area, working for a number of different municipalities there. But very excited to be back in Charlottesville and working with all of you and other members of the community and our elected officials and my coworkers here at staff. I think we have some really great projects in front of us and really some exciting opportunities. So I'll go ahead and kick it over. Stacy, you want to go?
Sure. I'm Stacy Smalls. I'm the new Public Works Director, started around the end of December. So a little over 3 months I've been here. I'm from last stop before this one was in Northern Virginia, where I worked with the Public Works Department in Fairfax County. So I've worked closely with, we had an urban forestry division that did a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of seeing in the questions there. But I'm happy to be here and to answer some questions as far as what the capabilities and responsibilities are from the engineering department that does a lot of the review and the sediment and erosion control question that you had in there. But happy to be here and happy to participate and answer some questions.
Thank you.
And Peggy, I don't know if you need me to introduce myself.
Okay.
But I'm Lauren Hildebrand. I've been with the city for almost 15 years in June and just managing the various utilities. And I'm here representing the department.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, James, for suggesting you introduce yourself.
Yes. Okay. So our first question was how can you ensure that site development includes effective review for trees and natural resource protection? It seems like NDS may not have enough staff to effectively do that or to be primarily tasked with that. Are there plans to address that?
Well, let me answer this in this way. Our site plan review process, first off, is an interdepartmental and collaborative process, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not NDS operating alone. We work with our colleagues in Public Works, engineering, utilities, just to name the two departments here, but we also work with the Parks Department. In fact, the arborist has always been as a participant in our site plan review process. And I've gone back and reviewed a number of our plan review documents and seen that our arborist has in fact been an active participant in that review process. So, you know, is it a capacity issue at the NDS level, or is it a capacity issue? I think what I really would look at is if that capacity exists here within the city through an arborist, that's where I would look to get the information or the skill set that I need to effectuate the review that we need to do. And then in terms of the effectiveness of our review, of course, our review is as component, you know, it relies on what are the regulations that we have available to us to enforce. To a certain extent, you know, we push and prod for good planning and good design. So that's part of the task as well. And again, between our planning staff and other colleagues, including those in Parks and Rec, I think we actually do a fairly good job of trying to get the optimal development outcomes that we can get out of a given project. What'll help reinforce that, and I know we're going to talk about that further tonight, is what types of regulatory changes we can introduce as we move forward with the zoning rewrite project. So we can come back on that topic, but that's something that we are giving a lot of thought to. It's something that, you know, when we talk about the Plans Together team, our consultant team, I consider my staff and myself active participants in that team. And we're all having these conversations and talking about what are the things that we can do to advance, obviously, all of the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, but we've specifically highlighted tree preservation in those conversations.
James, can I ask, is there a flow chart that shows when and who reviews the site plans at what point, which departments, how that flows through the city system?
I'm not sure that I've seen something specifically that I could pinpoint and call it a flow chart, but what I know is when a site plan comes in the door, it's immediately distributed to all of our plan reviewers, right? So that includes staff here in NDS who review for compliance with the landscape regulations, for example, but it also includes, again, the arborist is on that list of those who received the site plans for review. Includes engineering, utilities, everyone receives it at the same time.
Oh, I see. So people are reviewing it individually in their own departments. There's not a come together meeting where they do it around a table.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. It really depends on the project. You remember there's a lot of different site plan projects that are coming through at a whole range of different scales. So that type of come together happens on an as needed basis. We also do, I should note that there's pre-submission meetings. So before somebody submits a site plan, we'll call a meeting that'll have, again, interdepartmental representation to flag issues, answer questions, those types of things. And then depending on the project, there may be a meeting either, there's for many projects, yes, there is a meeting that's an interdepartmental meeting amongst staff. And then there's also can be at times meetings with the applicant and staff.
Okay. And do the individuals who do review it, do they sign off on something so that you know that it's been reviewed by that department?
Well, yeah. So what we do is what we get back is we do a comment letter that goes back to the applicant, right? And that comment letter has the collected comments of every single department.
Okay. Thank you, James.
Absolutely.
So sharing that with the arborist, is that just something that you do, or is there a written rule that we can look at? I didn't see that anywhere, that was part of the review process.
It's something that we do.
It's just something you do. Okay. Yeah. And when is the landscape plan done? Is that reviewed with the site plan, or does that come later?
It's reviewed as part of the final site plan. This is something I'm going to say, right up front, there's some changes and some work we need to do on our site plan review process. Right. And in particular, you'll note if you look at the existing ordinance, it identifies a preliminary plan and a final site plan. Mm-hmm. But the preliminary site plan is kind of an optional step. Most developers choose to go straight to a final. And the final site plan includes a landscape plan.
Okay. And who applies the site plan checklist? Do you have a landscape architect?
No, you're gonna have to help me here on what we mean by the site plan checklist.
Okay, I guess I'm not sure what that.
Planner, it's the planner for
Planner.
that district, I believe. James is in charge of all the site plan distributions and comment response
Well,
letters.
that is true, yeah. So when a site plan comes in, our planner distributes it again to all the departments, and they,
Mhm,
again, provide their comments.
mhm.
If a department doesn't have comments, we ask them to reply affirmatively back, no comment, so that we know
Mhm.
that something isn't just lingering on the desk, not looked at or whatever.
Okay,
Again, there's two things. When we're looking at a site plan, there's two types of review that people are doing. They're reviewing for regulatory compliance, and they're reviewing for best practices or kind of our good design policy, right? We're looking to make sure that we're getting the best possible product, basically, for each development project that comes in, consistent with the policies inherent in our comprehensive plan, or best practices in the field generally. And so we note that on the comment sheet. When we make a comment, it's, this is necessary, we're making a comment that this is either a change that's necessary for regulatory compliance, or we're making a comment that says, this is consistent with our adopted policy to do this or to add something to the plan.
mhm. And do you apply the BMPs for trees?
So when you say BMP, BMP typically stands for best management practice and is a stormwater quality control
Mm,
installation.
one for
facility.
trees
Is that
also.
what you mean by that?
There is there's BMPs for trees also, not just stormwater.
But James, there's, sorry, Vicky.
Yes, go ahead.
I think Mark and I were involved with the design manual. In the BMPs, there are a number of issues involving tree protection and trees replacement. They were, I think, incorporated into the design manual. And just wondering, are those being enforced? I mean, there's a whole lot of tree protection measures in it.
Okay. I have to admit, I have not read our full design manual at this point. That's something that is mostly an engineering product, but I'm happy to take a look at it and see what's there.
I think
I
there
would
is a
like to-
separate document specifically on trees, which I'll be happy to send you.
Right.
I'd like it for engineering purposes. We're reviewing that for sediment and erosion control.
Uh-huh.
So we're looking at those type of BMPs. But going along the lines of what James was talking about, having an arborist, I think that individual would then be reviewing those BMPs. That would be with the purpose of protecting trees. So it's not like we all have our same lane. So if we notice something, of course, we're going to bring it up to our other partnering agencies. But we have a focus when we're looking at plans to review it. Everyone gets their own set to kind of look at what they're looking at per the design review process.
Mhm.
If I could chime in on this too, having been part of some of these early reviews, I think the way James framed it, I just wanted to sort of underline that the city has certain tools in a toolkit. And when he said regulatory compliance and then best practices, there has to be something in the code. If you're asking the applicant, a developer, to make a change, you cite chapter and verse and you have to comply with these standards. Then other kinds of recommendations like this best practices document that I think was Appendix H of something, the comp plan, or it's a sort of guideline or reference standard. Somehow, maybe the tree commission can kind of help identify how those how those recommendations or guidelines are kind of brought to bear as they can be provided by the city and say, here are the kinds of things that we like to see. And those are two different kinds of documents. So the Tree Commission can, on one hand, help advise the city as part of this next round of code review and zoning changes for, we have a list. We've maintained a list of every code section that deals with trees. And so, those are the things that you can hang your hat on. But as you've said, many of them just aren't strong enough. So as we got in the middle of a lot of these site plan reviews, and we're finding that a lot of the stuff we had hoped to see happen because their best practices aren't really enforceable. And that kind of left us hoping to make them more enforceable in some way. So we're all sort of in the same boat with this. And the questions are generally around those kinds of things, trying to understand where we are with regard to both the process and some of the standards.
And Mark, it sounds like the Tree Commission is going to need to work with the new urban forester to be sure that he's applying BMPs to his review process. Looking at.
And I think as far as enforcement and regulatory requirements, that we will want to be making specific suggestions in the new zoning ordinance to have specific BMPs either be incorporated in the ordinance or be incorporated by reference to it.
And then I'll add, from what I've seen in the park side, is that as much as our urban forester does with site plan comments and all that, one thing Parks Department does not do, I don't think, is go out on site and see, did they dig the tree hole deep enough? I think tree protection fencing's gone really well because everybody can see that and say, hey, you're violating the tree protection. In terms of new plantings of trees and those sorts of things, Parks' authority might stop at site plan comments, but do the on-site inspectors know to measure stuff like the depth and the root balls and when they install new trees? That might be something to look at, because I'm not familiar with what happens after it leaves us and becomes a construction site after it's a site plan.
That's a great point, Chris. Thank you.
It is a good point, though. I'm not sure who, that it's something worth thinking about, because I'm not sure who would be tasked with doing that. And I also have to be cognizant of the fact that on a construction site, everything that we inspect slows down the development and the construction process, right? So there's a balancing act there, because there's a cost associated with the time that construction site is spent. Now, the other side of enforcement is the survivability of the trees that are planted. And our ability to come back and say, your site plan included this set of trees on your property, they've died. Do we have the enforcement authority to come back and ensure that those are replanted?
Maybe we should jump right into what you were originally suggesting, of things that you would like to see changed in the ordinance.
I don't know that I have specific recommendations at this point for tree preservation. I have general thoughts, and then I have the process that we're looking at. And one of the things I am hoping that the Tree Commission will provide to us is your recommendations, your comments, your thoughts on things that we should be incorporating either into zoning or into other regulations that the city has, and to get those in writing. And this is the tough part, as soon as possible, because we're on track right now for delivery of our first product under the zoning phase of this work for mid-April.
Mid-April. Okay. Yeah. We have a draft document that the Codes Committee has worked on. And I think right after this meeting, we'll be sending it out to the rest of the Tree Commission for approval. Yeah. And fantastic. Then we'll be getting that to you as soon as possible.
That would be fantastic. Great.
Yeah.
If I can just, let me take a moment just to describe the overall zoning rewrite process.
Yes,
So we're looking at least a year-long process from where we're sitting right now today. Which is, I'm going to tell you, a very fast and aggressive schedule for rewriting an entire zoning ordinance. The first thing that we're going to be releasing in mid-April is our approach report, which is basically to describe what are the gaps between our existing zoning ordinance and the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. Where can we improve our zoning in terms of the best practices and how to write and do zoning? And then what are we actually proposing to put into the zoning ordinance? It's not going to be actual zoning language, but it's going to convey what are the rules we're proposing in simple, approachable language. That report will be released in mid-April. Then we're going to spend an amount of time on getting review and feedback from everybody. And then that'll go to the Planning Commission and the City Council, where we're looking for the direction of, yes, proceed with this approach as outlined, or make changes or whatever. But basically, we're looking for the go-ahead to move forward into drafting. If we get that go-ahead, we're going to spend the summer drafting, so actually writing the detailed ordinance, and then have that available in the September-October timeframe for them to have public review and feedback, which hopefully puts us on track to beginning the adoption process with Planning Commission and City Council at the beginning of calendar year 2023. So that's our overall timeframe. I'm referring to this as the measure twice, cut once approach.
Yes.
This report, and then the draft draft language in the fall. Those are our two measurements, and then we move forward for adoption.
Okay.
Thank you.
When are you going to start? When are they going to start having public input?
After we release the report. So we tentatively are targeting beginning the week of April 26th, but we'll have lots of announcements and information once that becomes available. But again, written comments right now,
yes,
are very valuable to us.
Yes, we'll get ours to you as soon as possible.
And then broadly, as I think about tree preservation in the context of zoning and development, one of my general principles is, if you want to preserve trees, you need to have flexibility in the overall zoning ordinance, because trees can't move, right? They're there, they're where they are. If the rules otherwise for a site are very, very strict, then they're going to mow down the trees as they're applied to an individual piece of property. So when I talk about strict rules, I'm talking about things like setback. I'm talking about things like parking requirements. There's a lot of different rules, and these are the places where we see those rules as soon as they run up against a tree in our existing processes, and this happens all over the country and every other community I know of. As soon as those fixed rules run up against the tree comes down.
James, you'd heard us. I'm sure you heard us when we presented the City Council. We talked about in other localities, and one in particular we know in Richmond, that they have an incentive to for developers to try to save public trees. If they're going to cut them down, they have to pay into a fund or plant more trees, and sometimes it can amount to thousands of dollars, depending. I think that's something obviously we'd like to look into. And in fact, I think I read something today about the state has just done some enabling legislation along those lines. So I know that's something that we'd like to see strengthened.
Absolutely, and I've reviewed that enabling legislation, which the governor has another week or so to sign. I can't remember the date, but he's got some time before he has to sign it. But it's passed the House and Senate.
But it has the reenactment clause, right? Or at least parts of it. So it doesn't go into effect unless it's passed again in the next assembly.
I don't know. Does it have any reenactment clause? Oh.
I think it does.
All right.
I'll take another look at that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, and I'm looking at, we're certainly planning on looking at the Richmond ordinance. I've also had recommended that we look at Arlington's ordinance.
Yeah.
So I think that's absolutely something that we want to consider, and that certainly attaching a cost to the removal of trees becomes another factor in the development process.
Yes. Is there a fund now that developers can pay into if they aren't able to preserve or replace trees?
I'm not sure that there is. That was a question I was asking as well at some point, and I haven't heard an answer to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would expect, Chris, do you know the answer to that? Is there a pot of money for?
I
tree
don't
planting?
believe developers can contribute to a fund versus not take a tree down. I think there's something like that for sidewalks, just a little bit. They can build the sidewalk within one block of their thing. I
Yes.
don't believe, I've been here about 16 years. I don't think I've seen anything like that.
Right.
In that sense. We have a funds for the forest they could donate into, but that's a site plan rule about, is it a punishment? Is it a penalty? Is it a whatever offset? That's never happened in my tenure.
Okay. So our next question had to do with Friendship Court. We had submitted some recommendations about the trees, and then we were kind of surprised to find out that they were already decided to be cut down. And we're wondering if we can have input in the ongoing process.
So I think Friendship Court is actually a pretty good example of that process where, first the developer had a lot of program that they needed to accomplish in this first phase because they're trying to accommodate all of the, or not all of, but a substantial amount of the replacement units in the first phase and a community center. And then that first phase is constrained because of the underground stream and utilities and so on and so forth. And then some setback requirements came into play. And that is, again, where the trees ran up against some inflexible standards, and the result was what it was. The remaining phases, first off, I've now met a number of times on even just talking about trees with the developer Friendship Court, and a number of us went out on site and talked through it. And my sense from the developers, they're very much committed to working to preserve the trees in the subsequent phases, where they also feel that they're going to have more flexibility to do so. And then I'm going to say, it sounds like we have an arborist on board, and I'd say through the arborist, that's your opportunity to have have your comments included in the site plan review for the subsequent phases as they come through.
Yeah.
Yeah, James, as you know, that's a sensitive subject with the tree commission, and we will be watching the next couple of phases. But before we used to make some comments on large developments. I think, Mark, didn't we could see them posted. But then something happened. I think that we haven't been able to comment. We don't want to comment on every project, but when there's a big impact on the environmental trees, we were able to do so. But I don't know is that still something we could do?
Well,
through our forester, urban forester.
Well, certainly through the forester, the arborist, I'm sorry, is part of our review process. So that option absolutely exists. And as far as directly commenting, I don't know, I'm curious what the mechanism was where that happened before. But every site plan that we do does incorporate a public meeting where those plans are shared, and the entire public has an opportunity to provide comment. So I don't see any reason why the tree commission wouldn't be able to provide comment.
Yeah. Before, I think, the urban forester would tell us site plans that were coming through the pipeline, and particularly those, again, that would have some impact. And
Sure.
That's how we got to, I think COVID kind of messed everything up. And, so I think we'll ask our new urban forester, when there is a significant development, that we could, work through him to make our comments.
Okay, there was a specific ordinance requirement that we wanted to ask about, Code Section 34866, which requires developers to make reasonable efforts to preserve certain trees, and says that site plans should not be approved if they propose unnecessary destruction of trees or natural areas. Does that get enforced? Are there ever any site plans that just get refused because of that?
My history here isn't long enough to
Yeah.
know what impact that ordinance provision has had. As part of looking into a new tree preservation ordinance, one of the things I'm going to be looking for is an analysis of our existing provisions and what their effectiveness has been. So
Right.
I'll find out and get an answer to that.
Yeah, great. Okay. Jean, you had your hand up a while back. Do you want to ask something?
I'm not sure it's important. It's just that from my terrace here downtown, I look out at the code building and as it's been going up, and I was delighted to see many trees going up on the roof. But unfortunately, very few trees going down where pedestrians are actually walking on hot pavement and so forth. And I was wondering if there's anything in the code that they have to meet tree amounts on the ground level, and you can't substitute putting things up on the 6th or 9th floor, can you? Just a general question.
I am not sure about that project. I would have to look into it. That project was approved well before I was here, but I'll look into it and see what I can find out.
So
Vicki, I don't know if you want to, don't want to leave Stacy and Lauren out. I don't know if you want to skip to some of the questions.
Yeah,
and
the
record
utility.
them.
Well, those were the utilities questions.
Yeah.
So how is tree preservation taken into account when installing utilities?
So when we design a project, we look at the existing trees, and if we can, like I know of several sewer, I'll just give you some specific examples, several sewer line projects where we've got a little more leeway from, we could put it here versus there, and we can put it there and avoid a really large tree. So that's all taken into account when we design projects. Most of our work is I would say probably percentage, maybe 85% is probably done in the right of way. And most, and and most of it is replacement of existing or repair of existing. So, and it's probably 85%, so we don't do a lot of work, it would be sewer work when it's associated with because it has to flow by gravity, or storm work that has to flow by gravity, where we're in, somebody's yard that may affect a tree. And we certainly take that into account when we're evaluating the route selection. Notice you also had his directional boring required.
Yes.
So it really depends on the type of project. I know recently, this project hasn't been built yet, but we had a request and we're able to accommodate, because we go along a large tree, and we're still pretty far off of it, but it's a really substantial specimen tree. And in that, we're also crossing a parking lot entrance. So we were asked in that project to bore the parking lot entrance so people could still get in and out of their business. And we're going to extend that bore to get beyond that tree, because it just makes sense, because the tree is kind of right next to it. So I would say, yes, we do bore, but where it makes sense, right? And in a particular instance, it made a lot of sense.
So you're talking about the direct work that the city does. What's your involvement with the lines between the city property and a new house development?
So natural gas, we install everything up to the meter at the house. So all under our purview. And that's all mostly done with in-house crews. Sewer, we have generally the lines in the right of way, or it could be behind a house. And then the lateral lines come off of that, and we have we don't own or maintain those lines to the household. And we call those sewer lateral lines. So they're usually smaller in diameter. They're not as deep as our lines may be. And those are owned by the homeowner. I don't know if I'm answering your question. And then the water meter, the water lines, usually those are found in right of way. They're not, because they're pressure fed. So they're usually in right of way. And then we own the small pipe that goes to the meter, which is usually set right behind the sidewalk.
Right.
And the household would own from the meter to the house. And we have a diagram actually online that we try to provide people this information. I mean, I can send it to Chris, and he can send you the link of, what the ownership specifics are.
Mm-hmm. So is this something that's reviewed in the site plan process by somebody?
So utilities.
I'm sorry.
So for new development, utilities looks at all of the lines that are being put in from a utility standpoint, and making sure that they meet our design specifications.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They have the right materials, because we don't want, and we look at everything because we don't want a new homeowner buying a house where somebody didn't put in the right household line, right? Or the right material, whatever. So that's all reviewed by the utilities.
And is tree preservation taken into account?
We don't look at the tree preservation aspects of a site plan at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's by, your arborist.
And typically, because most utilities go underneath the asphalt in the rights of way, I'd say 85% of utilities, even in a new development, are not in places where trees would be, other than potentially the sewage, which goes downhill, and that can sometimes go through a green space area. So, but yeah, utilities looks at all that stuff in a new subdivision came in. But again, most of those new subdivisions are putting all their lines in the streets in that sense. So
that's correct. Chris has it right.
Yeah. Jody, you had a question about
Yeah.
utilities. I don't want to forget.
Right.
No, simply making sure that the question that was sent out earlier was going to be discussed. So it's about the clearance between utilities and tree planting, whether 10 feet is the city requirement, and if that can be reduced. And that there's also issues of clearance between utility lines themselves. So by the time you get several utility lines running next to each other, and then you need 10 feet on either side, you could take up quite a bit of space with the utility easements and no planting areas. And when that aligns with the setback, all of a sudden you can't plant any trees along the street. So I just wanted to, I think it's a good question. What are the requirements for easements for clearance to either side of utilities? Which utilities, and what are the clearance requirements between utilities?
So there are state regulations that provide for those separations between utilities, and typically between water and sewer, I think it's 5 feet. And then you've got certain requirements between natural gas and water and sewer as well. And those are all required by state and federal regulations that we have to follow. So there's not a lot of leeway when it comes to separations between utilities. But we have a procedure that was actually written in 2018 that we would like to have, 10 feet from utilities and trees, just because of the operations and maintenance. We recognize that sometimes that is just not feasible depending on the site. And so we have some flexibility built into this procedure that we look at specific, it's really site specific, we find, we want to look at the material that's used for the utility. We want to look at the depth of the utility. So we have some flexibility written in this procedure that allows for some site specificness to be considered. And then we would allow something to be, within the 10 feet. So between 10 and 5 feet, then we allow certain plantings to be planted. And we have kind of this laundry list of what's allowable to be planted. But all of that has to, look at the specifics of the site.
And that's where when site plans are reviewed individually within a department and they're not around a table, there's not much discussion or negotiation to say, well, what about this tree? And can we do anything better here? Or that's what it bothers me when it goes to a department and they say, oh, you don't have your 10 feet or that it needs to be 10 feet period. And then it goes to some other department, and then the developer gets all the comments and starts cutting down trees. I would hope that there was a way that, and clearly we need an active urban forester to be an advocate for saving these trees and possibly being able to come back to utilities saying, look, we got a tree here that you don't see on your site plan. Can we negotiate something? Can we be closer here or make some changes, modifications?
Mm-hmm. You're right. There isn't a lot of conversation that happens with the site plan review. And, James and Stacy could certainly weigh in on this, but, you're just looking at what's on a sheet of paper and trying to respond as the best you can with a comment back to give guidance to usually the engineering consultant to provide the changes on the next site plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, Jody, we all get all of the pages of the site plan. It's not like utilities only sees the utility layout. They get all of the sheets.
Yeah.
One thing we might look at maybe with other cities is, should we make an overlay sheet of landscape plus utilities on one sheet? That could be something to chew on in the future so that you do see them together on the same sheet. But we all get all the same sheets. To your point, Mike might look at the tree sheet more than the utility sheet, and Roy might look at the utility sheet more than the tree sheet, but they all have all the information in front of them in our current process.
But it depends upon how much time someone has to look at a site plan, how many site plans they have on their desk that day, and as to how much they're going to coordinate between the different trades of disciplines.
Jody, I appreciate the comment a lot. And so, we are, in fact, Stacy, Lauren, and I in particular, but overall, we're having conversations about our development review process broadly and how we can make improvements within the system so that we're achieving, regulatory compliance, of course, first and foremost, but also achieving our goals and objectives as a city.
Mm-hmm. And James, please forgive me if I'm sounding critical, but I think the Tree Commission has come through a period where we've been struggling trying to understand the process, and we have not had a good, strong urban forester in the last few years, quite frankly, and we need to have one to really push for trees and be an advocate for trees, and if anything, just to cause the conversation to happen. We're just wanting to be considered, that's all. And so I'm just hoping that our next urban forester is going to be a good advocate and will be working with and collaboratively with all the departments and cause collaborative interaction among the departments.
I think collaboration is a very strong goal that we need to move forward with. So I'm with you, Jody.
Thank you.
And
one of the items on one of the questions had to do with communication and collaboration. And so
I was going to bring that up, Stacy, since we haven't asked you a question.
So speaking with, I spoke with Crystal today. And so knowing how often you would want Crystal to come before you, whether it's quarterly, semi-yearly, but we can definitely make her available to where she can come and speak to you all about things that are going on in the environmental division, and then how we can, again, work together to get some of the mutual goals that we all have in mind for the city to get those things done. So she is more than apt to come up before you all, just kind of have to decide on what is that frequency.
Okay.
Thank you. That's, I know we're going to ask Crystal or to come and talk about the Heat Island study. That's one thing that's, I know was done this summer, and that's, I'm going to see, we'll get back to you or Crystal about when we can have that presentation, but I appreciate that because that department has done some great work. I mean, the green print, for instance, was a great document that we knew nothing about for a long time. And so I think, you know, we are working on common goals, and let's have that conversation and talk about, you know, how often that would make sense for someone to come. That'd be great. So I appreciate that. I didn't want to leave you out. I'm glad
No
you
worries.
talked about that.
No worries.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the time, and we appreciate all the staff being here and missing your dinner hour for us. Are there any questions? And I'm sorry, Vicki, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think
Well,
I
I think
answered
we're done.
most of them.
Yes.
And also, James, you are going to get a great document soon. That's been very well thought out by the Codes Committee. I'm incredibly impressed. I think you will be too, with just the work they've done. So, and we will send that out really soon this week to all our tree commission members. And Jody, I know that you'll be particularly interested because you, being on the planning commission, deal with this all the time. And get that to you, James. But are any more questions before we sort of bring this meeting to a close?
I have a brief process question, and I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the feedback loop around the tree commission's comments. So when the tree commission is invited to give comments, is there then a conversation about how those comments have landed? Or is it like, thank you for your comments, they will or they won't be integrated? Because it sounds like it's not that the comments don't land somewhere, but also their comments. And I think there's an interesting distinction around being invited to comment, because it doesn't actually require you to comment on the comment. So I'm just curious about, is there an expectation of what happens with the comments? And just what is the process on the tree commission? I suppose, knowing where our comments go or how they land.
Are you referring to the
Go ahead,
development
James.
process?
Yeah.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I broke up a bit there. Are you referring to comments provided as part of the development review, site plan review process?
Yeah, and if the process is distinct, there also might not be a process for what happens with our comments. But you know, I'm just curious about, is there a consistent mode of what happens with comments? Or is it we see as we go and it's project based?
It was certainly, it's going to depend on each individual project, but I'm also going to refer back to that distinction between there really being two types of comments. Those that are regulatory, they land and the developer, the project proponent, makes changes to their plans until their plans are consistent with the regulatory requirement, right? And that's our evidence that the comments have been taken into account. We get a new submission, and the new submission is consistent with the regulations. Now, often, I think the comments on tree preservation are not regulatory, they're more best practice. We have a policy, we'd like to see this preserved. In many cases, it's really going to be up to the developer as to what actions they're willing or able to take, given all the other factors that they are looking at in their individual project. And that's where we come back to, do we have strong enough tools in our regulatory toolbox And do we have a process that is setting up a developer or setting us up for getting kind of optimal consideration of the comments that we're providing? What I mean by that is one of the things that we need to look at in our site plan review process is that because our review is happening with the final plan that's fully, is effectively fully engineered, is that there's often going to be a reluctance on the part of a site designer or a developer to make changes at that point in time. So how do we get earlier in the process and get our comments that are policy-based, that are best practice-based, that are the things that we want for good design that we can't get in through regulation? How do we get those earlier in the design process? My experience, frankly, of most developers is that if the cost works out, they're going to accept those kinds of comments because they want, you know, hey, they're people, everybody wants to be liked. They want to have a project the community is happy about. It's good for them in the long run. I mean, I've told developers their buildings are ugly and they've gone, oh yeah, they are, and they've changed it. So, so people, you know, they'll respond to those, but they're less likely to respond to them if they've already spent a few $100,000 on design. So part of it is, how do we do the process? So that was a bit of a long answer, but thank you for the question. And you
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we have to make changes in our regulations. We also have to make changes in our process.
So Makisha, there hasn't been a formal sort of process about how we've made comments over the last number of years. And with the turnover in leadership and COVID and whatnot, it's been a little haphazard. But, you know, with a new urban forester coming in, I think we can now, you know, make it a little more regular that we can work with the new urban forester and get some of our comments in, particularly on large developments where there's an impact. So we can work through him early. As James said, the earlier we can get our comments in, the better. So I think that's something we will work on with our new urban forester as soon as he can. And I think he's actually coming April 11th, but maybe Chris knows differently. But we'll let him get acclimated. And we have a long list for our urban forester. We've been waiting. So.
Hey, Peggy.
Yes.
I have a thought as we've been going through this, realizing that a lot of the comments, we're trying to talk about some very specific things with generalized language, and that maybe sometime between now and like next year, since this group of sort of integrated design leaders and department heads happens on an annual basis, maybe with our new urban forester, we could somehow take one project that has brought together a bunch of these issues and kind of use the case study approach to help everyone on the tree commission kind of understand the site plan review process and how that happened. Like to have the specific example of, you know, the forester said this and this tree was here, but there was a utility here, and like even extrapolating from that process might help make this kind of a bit more tangible, because it's every project is really different. We know that there's a lot of stuff happening with zoning and setbacks that are changing. Different zoning districts have different rules, but it would just be interesting to see sort of what ideally could happen. Take a good example of a project and what those comments look like, and figure out how we plug into that. Do it all around the urban forester's seat at the table, basically, right? And then and we've got specific project, and it's all from like our urban forestry perspective. And then, you know, what does that person have as a tool to do that? It might be a good exercise for us, maybe 6 months from now or something, and then check in a year.
That's a good idea. And we might do it in a way to explain maybe some of the recommendations that we're giving for the zoning ordinance rewrite, to make it really, and hopefully we'll be back, believe it or not, after more than 2 years, hopefully we'll be back in the same room one day soon, which makes that sort of more, we can be more participatory with each other. and actually meet each other face to face. So I think that's a good idea. Thanks, Mark. Well, if there are no more comments, we'll be sending out the Jody.
Oh,
Sorry.
About comments, I was just going to thank Lauren, James, and Stacy for
Yes.
being here tonight, going above and beyond your to help us as citizens, volunteers, and especially James and Stacy. Welcome to Charlottesville.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
we too appreciate you staying these long 2 hours with us and putting up with us. But, you know, we look forward to working with you. So we will be sending out those recommendations. So the tree commission will get them to you, James, and Stacy and Lauren, just as soon as we can. Should be by the end of the week or beginning of next week. Is that good, James?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay,
And,
good.
I think we were also going to send the final report, the tree canopy report as well.
Yes, we will do that also too.
Fantastic.
Okay, good. Thank you. I don't know if there's any comments from the general public. Chris, would you know, or Remy? Is Remy there?
I don't see any general public on.
Yeah, we have 2 attendees.
Oh, okay.
So if either of you would like to speak at this time, press the raise hand icon in your Zoom webinar, or if you're joining us via telephone, you can press *9. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes.
Nope. Looks like they want the meeting to end as much as we do. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll send out those recommendations and the Arbor Days, the Arbor schedule for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome, new members.
Peggy.
Excited to have all the new
Bye.
members.
Yes, thank you, new members.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.